Model railroading is more than a hobby. Some people think it's an obsession. However, it's creating a whole world. And it's a world that sometimes you can imagine yourself being in.
If you're having trouble getting on the right track to locate any one of the 4 Cascade Pacific Railway crew, Bill Hook, Dan Roselle, Wayne Paulson, or Peter Thornton Trump, there's a good chance of tracking them down and finding them, wandering somewhere in their model railway world.
When I was a lot younger, I really wanted to be an engineer on a steam locomotive. However, being more educated about what that type of career was, it was a pretty rough trade. My desire for that has evaporated somewhat. Running a model railway the way that we're able to do it now is quite realistic. The way that you would be in charge of a locomotive and what you had to do. And when we're creating our model railway, one of the things we try to achieve is realism as far as the scenery goes, and realism as far as the time period that the trains are running in. We pay a lot of attention to making sure that the rolling stock or cars are of a period that would be appropriate for the period that we're modeling. We try to run things as realistically as possible because there's a lot of people out there that know railroading very well and they're quite critical. People that come to see the railway at public shows are amazed at the amount of detail that they see in the railway. One of the features that really intrigue people is the way we do water. It looks very realistic. In fact, some of the water we do in several layers so we can put fish into it, and a lot of the details are tiny, but if you search for them, you'll find them. The season we've chosen for the Cascade Pacific is fall. And it gives us an opportunity to introduce lots of color into the scenery. Building the trestle was a major project, and it's modeled after one of the CPR trestles lost in the Myra Canyon fire. I built it out of basswood, and it has over 1,000 nut bolt washer castings in its construction. And it's become one of the major features of the Cascade Pacific Railway.
The nice thing about the railway that I'm working on now is a lot to do with the era that I'm modeling. It is from a time and a place that was much calmer and a much more relaxed pace than we live in nowadays. So I guess it's my little escape into my little dream world. We're trying to model an era in the history of the world that was totally separate from what people nowadays can understand unless they were there. And we're trying to portray that era so that they can understand it. Because there's no way, unless you're looking at old movies, that you can actually see what went on in those days. The steam era was a pretty romantic time. They were living and breathing machines. It wasn't turn a key and push a button. You actually had to use very involved procedures to make the thing even go, let alone go well.
When people come to see this layout at shows, they are astounded by the level of detail and the fact that it's so nicely finished and it's so complete. It is an artistic whole. It's not just a bunch of little scenes strung together or anything like that. It actually is a whole operating layout with all the functions of a regular railroad, including sidetracks, industries, switching. Peter is a professional graphic artist, so he's done all the backdrops and is responsible for the general artistic layout of the whole system. Dan and Wayne are both very mechanically oriented guys and very good at detail, and so they pretty much divide up things like track laying and constructing buildings, that sort of thing, between them. My own specialty is electrical stuff, since I'm an electrical engineer. We call ourselves O-scale model railroads because our scale is larger than the common HO scale. That's how we differentiate ourselves from most model railroaders.
This is a hobby that involves a lot more than just running trains and building trains. It's a social thing that we do together, and it's also a multi-skilled operation that involves a lot of talent. So it's more than just playing with trains, and it goes pretty deep actually into a lot of life skills.
When I retired and announced to my wife that I was interested in model railroad, she looked at me like I was crazy. You know, you're a grown man, you want to play with models? What are you, nuts? She's come around now and sees the advantages of me having a hobby where I can get out of the house and do something. She was terribly impressed with the article I wrote in the Garden Railway magazine. She thought that was super.
One thing about model railroading at the scale that we're modeling is it's very important for wives to know how much we pay for our locomotives. Because if anything ever happens, they want to be assured that they know the value of them and they don't think they're just toy trains. They're actually collectible, and they actually increase in value as they get older if they're looked after properly. Like I told Diane how much these things cost, because she said, "Oh, really?" I said, "Yeah, no, but it's an investment. It's like art. It's like buying art."
My favorite scene is the little town with a single station and a small loading dock with some industries around it. That's my very favorite scene in our layout.